Hello, and a warm welcome to the Property and Investor Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Paul Lanfear. Before we get into the podcast, nothing in the podcast is health, legal, or financial advice. Anthony, a very warm welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you, my friend?
I'm all right. Thank you very much for inviting me, Paul. It's been good. I've been doing my homework over the past week, listening to some of your back catalogue. And
Oh, good.
if you've listened, I listened to Graham Thomas's yesterday, and I just want to say, if anyone does want to go to TPT, it is educational. It is a professional outfit. It's not what these two make it out to be. It's a good
I
event.
feel like I should add some details. So TPT is Anthony's event in the Northeast, and it is one of the best. Like, I'll get the plug out of the way for you. It is definitely one of the best property networking events in the whole of the UK. It like such a good vibe, such a friendly crowd, and really great relaxed presentations as well, genuinely enjoyable. So yeah, I've got the pitch out of the way for you, and oh, I'm pleased to listen to some of the podcasts as well, and obviously Graham's awesome, and wishing him continued success. So
Yeah.
for those listening on the audio, if you were able to switch to YouTube, I would highly recommend it because Boise has got the most amazing backdrop. He's got what looks to be like a Caribbean beach with a little bit of surf on it, a kind of wave that looks like if we were in. It's kind of a wave that looks like it's like this wave called the Waikiki, which is like a slow breaking wave.
I'm just on my patio in the yard in Darlington, mate. I'm
If if
just outside at the moment.
if that was true, Boise, I'd be moving to Darlington tomorrow. Not to say I won't move to Darlington anyway, it's a fabulous place. Right, let us crack on. So, before we get into the podcast, we had a break from the podcast. We're getting back to it. I've got some fabulous guests over the next few weeks. We're fully booked up. Please do subscribe to the podcast because you're going to get some great guests, and it makes a massive difference on all the platforms. So, Anthony, tell us a little bit about you. Like, how did we get here? Like, what's your origin story before we get into the nuts and bolts of property?
How far are we going back?
Well, like literally, where were you born? Like, it's like let's start there.
Um, well, it makes it sound like I'm posh when I say where I was born. So I was born in Harrogate, but
Okay.
it was, I haven't asked my mum and dad about my origin of how I became to be who I am or what I am. But my dad was an army trainee at, I think it's called Penny Pot or something outside Harrogate. And I imagine they met in a disco, and I'm not going to go into details, but it wasn't long after that I was born and they were married when they were 18 and 19. So, so
Right.
yes, my dad was in the army. I've bounced around all kinds of places, which I think in a way, when you go to a primary school and you've got an odd accent and all of that kind of stuff, you're the new kid. I guess it does toughen you up for later in life. You're always adapting to change and things like that. So yeah, I lived in places like Germany, Dorset, Catterick, Harrogate, and then finally ended up in Darlington when I was second last year of primary school. So I was going to school on a council estate when we moved up here, and I had sort of like Queen's English voice compared to everybody speaking through their noses, which is like the Darlington tone. So yeah, I was kind of picked on a little bit just because of my voice, but yeah, you roll with it. From there, I guess I'm not. Well, I do architecture now. I run an architecture business. Scaled up big businesses and scaled back down as well when I realized I didn't like it. But God, what happened? So I did all right at school, went to college, dropped out of that, delivered pizzas. Um, just I just didn't, like a lot of people, I guess you leave school and you just don't know what the hell you want to do with your life.
Mhm.
So it was only probably mid to late twenties when I went to college and did oh god, what was it? I can't remember what they were called back then. Equivalent to an A level in CAD sort of thing in
Mhm.
architectural design, and then went to university part time. Got my architectural technology degree, and then started working in I guess property that way.
Mhm.
But again, I was working for maybe sort of 8, 9, 10 years before the penny dropped, and I realised, well, I can actually do something with this knowledge I've picked up along the way. So it was only through reading, I think it was Rich Dad Poor Dad at the time, when I decided, oh, right, there's maybe something I should be doing for myself, making a better future and all of that jazz. Read the E-Myth Revisited as well. And that kind of got me thinking about, well, I should be doing my own business as well and not
Mhm.
working for the man, all of that kind of stuff. And that led me on a bit of a journey from, it was post, literally just after COVID. Well, just before COVID, I stepped out of employment into my own business, like literally
Mhm.
2 weeks before. Worst time ever. I had a cushy job with Savills and stuff like that beforehand. And hindsight, if I'd have just stayed on for like another few months, I would have had, furlough and all of that kind of stuff. I could have had my feet up all COVID. But no, fortunately, through the network I'd built, I managed to hustle and make a living through placing people for SA accommodation through COVID. So that kind of carried me through. And then coming out the other side when the world opened up again, I started a business called Rocket Architectural Design, and that grew. I think we had maybe 6 people at that peak, but then that opened opportunities to other things. With I guess the notoriety and me being on the stage at TPT and the opportunities it brought. It brought a lot of people who wanted to JV, and it kind of it grew arms and legs. It developed into a construction company, heritage and archaeology, ecology, social media, and all of a sudden I had about 40 odd employees at one point, and kind of created a life I didn't really like.
Mhm.
Um, I think that there was an aspiration to get to a certain income level, and then realize, Jesus, what have I what have I done here? This is not what I thought it would be. So, having been turned over by a few people, I'm back down to myself. Grant, who was my original employee, Grant Hewitt, good lad,
Mhm.
Grant, and Daphne, just working a couple of days a week, and just enjoying it again, doing what I do rather than
Mhm.
um, babysitting almost. That's what it seemed to get when there was that many people involved. Along the way, I've developed some properties, going from your buy to let levels to the commercial conversions and things like that now, new builds. Um, and yeah, I think that sort of brings us up to current state of play.
Love it. So you weren't tempted to follow your dad's footsteps and go into like a military career or anything like that? Did it ever cross your mind, or was it all, were you always, that's not for me?
No, I think I'm always. I don't know if it's everyone, but if your dad does something, you do the opposite. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, he was a Spurs fan, and I didn't want to be a Spurs fan, so I was a Man U fan. It's like there was
Yeah.
always, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going that way instead. So no, the idea of the military wasn't high on my list. Although I like playing Call of Duty, but that's as
That's as
close as
far
the
as it
bullets want to
goes.
be getting to me. Yeah.
Fair enough. And obviously you've read like two of the big game-changing books that I think so many of us have read. Like, Rich Dad Poor Dad is like that is the book. It's the book that got my wife into property, and then she kind of handed it to me, and it particularly I think helped me understand that framework of what the difference is between being a freelancer, being employed, being a business owner, being an investor, and knowing where you kind of fit across that matrix and where you fit into the world and where you might thrive. And you mentioned the E-Myth. One of the great things about the E-Myth, you might not remember this, but the thing I took away from that book was the reference to the entrepreneurial seizure. That everybody who is an entrepreneur has this thing called the entrepreneurial seizure at some point. They reach that point with their job and they work, even if it's enormously successful, they just go, I cannot do this for a day longer, and something causes them to chuck in like a perfectly good living to risk really probably everything on their own. Did you have an entrepreneurial seizure? Do you remember that moment?
Well, yeah, I mean, the E-Myth, the thing when the penny dropped is, I was working for my stepdad in structural engineering. So, it's a great job, lots of work and things like that. But it was when you start looking at it, and, he was basically a self-employed person. and I was employed by him. And it was when that sort of penny dropped, and you thought, right, well, what happens when, if he don't want it to happen, but drops down dead or
Mhm.
hurts himself, and he's out there winning the work, and I'm
Mhm.
just sat in the office. What happens then? So it was that and I was also investing in properties at the time, which gave me that little bit of a buffer, I guess. But it was that point where I thought, right, I need something for me here. So yeah, I guess that was my seizure. I wouldn't call it a seizure. It was more toys out the pram and like, no, I'm going to go and do this. And yeah, timing was horrific, to be honest. Not when I left that job. I'd say I worked at Savills after that, and then an ill-fated role with a local architect, and we fell out when he realised I had other stuff going on. So a little bit of jealousy there, I think.
Yeah.
I was just about to buy a church at that point, and that was going to be developed. So I think when he sort of saw, right, well, this guy's going places, he's not going to need me.
Mhm.
He just started picking holes in everything, and it was it was a day after my birthday that we sat down in the office, almost came to blows, and I went my own way and started on my own.
Blimey. And as you say, the timing is hilarious in a good way, in the sense that if you hadn't done that, you could have been furloughed and you could literally have been sat in your garden for a year. But what good would that have done the planet? So like, fair play to you. It is interesting, isn't it? I think it is a discussion I have to have with people that I work with when they are employed, but they're kind of starting their own business, or they're doing the property investing thing, and they're thinking about what they can put on LinkedIn, for example, that is going to be, kind of workable with their employer. I think I was pretty fortunate in that respect, in that certainly at the time, maybe less so now. Um, Property was like kind of a British pastime, wasn't it? Like everybody had an aspiration to get into property. So when I started posting the occasional shot of keys and pre and post refurbs, you know, I'd have all of my colleagues, like I was friends with, would come up to me at the photocopy and say, "Oh, that's a really nice looking property you've just done there. How's it going?" In a non kind of antagonistic way. But I think it's quite a difficult balance if you're trying to juggle the two. And obviously, in your instance, like, you encountered a bit of friction by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything happens during the day, doesn't it? I mean, the one thing I don't like about construction and property is everything starts at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
then everybody buggers off by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you're working a full time job, it's the calls to agents, the
Yeah.
solicitors, and all of that kind of stuff that happens during work time, and that's the bit where it causes friction.
Mm.
Because you could, I was working later, or I wanted to work later
Hmm.
in certainly one job, but he wanted to go home at 4:30 or whatever, and I didn't have the ability to catch up on time sometimes.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's that balancing act, isn't it? You can put all the hours in, but your employer always picks up at, oh, you've been on a personal call there, or you've had an hour and a half for lunch and all of that. It doesn't matter about coming in early and going home late. It's just I think there's that animosity well, in certain people anyway, where
Yeah.
it's that seed's planted in it, it grows into a bigger issue. That's what I found anyway.
I used to have these very, in the final year of corporate life, I used to have these very fraught lunch times where I would leave the office and I was made sure that I was out like exactly for an hour, so I wasn't, taking the mick too much. Go to the hotel next door and, return the 12 calls that you've received during the morning from all kinds of important people, like your mortgage broker and your solicitor and, you know, letting agents and all the rest of it. I used to have these really intense lunch times where you're just absolutely smashing it through. And obviously lunchtime is not the best time to catch people either. So anyway, all fun and games. So you survived COVID. Obviously you took the entrepreneurial leap. You survived COVID, so that's a good thing. Um, and it sounds like what got you through there was your SA business.
Yeah, so we were fortunate, and again, it comes down to there's a whole host of things, but brand new. I'd always been working on myself as one of the guys at TPT, so that had put me in front of a lot of nice people, who are successful and always needed referrals, or do you know someone? And it was just through that, really, through networking. Someone had passed my name to someone else, and all of a sudden we were housing, I think they were Czechoslovakian electricians who were building Amazon depots locally.
Yeah.
And it was a really fortunate thing, really, that we were maybe our units were full. We maybe had 15 people in our units,
Mm-hmm.
and we were helping some of our friends, and they had people as well. But when COVID happened, Amazon wanted them to live and work in pairs, in sets of two.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, a house that might have had 8 people in, you could only sleep 2 people. So
Right.
what happened is, well, all of a sudden, we had maybe 50 people. We needed 25 houses, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. So obviously, we filled ours, we filled our friends, and then we needed more and more. So at a time when a lot of Airbnb owners were really suffering because they couldn't list their properties, we
Mm-hmm.
were able to, again, just through contacts and does anybody know? Has anyone got this free? Has anyone got this free? We filled all of this, and we were just making a 10% management fee on top. But on top of that, obviously, you're in the middle of COVID. You didn't have to deal with any cleaners.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, loo roll was like a commodity like gold at the time, so you didn't
Yeah.
have to go and drop that off. Everybody had to just find some dock leaves in the garden and whatever else. So, it was a real. It was weird. I was that entrepreneur. I was in my dressing gown eating pancakes. I didn't go down the health route. I went down the drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning route. But I was sitting there drinking wine and doing these deals, in the sunshine, and it was a good year that year, wasn't it? The sun
Yeah.
was
Well,
out. So yeah, it was an odd time, but it was lucrative. So yeah, had I not built that beforehand, though, I'd have been screwed, because there was no furlough, there was no self-employed
yeah.
bursary or whatever it was. There was a handout given to self-employed people, because I'd only been going 2 weeks, so I didn't have any books. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah. If it wasn't for that, I'd have been in a pickle, to be honest.
Definitely. And particularly the self-employed, I felt got the really rough end of it. There were a lot of other schemes that worked reasonably well, but if you were newly self-employed, you fell between a lot of the stools, and that was definitely a challenge. I saw this really dreadful, like fairly gleeful post on one of the social media platforms about it, like someone kind of slightly like celebrating that fact, and that like it's just amazing sometimes what human beings can be like. But anyway, um,
Yeah,
so then you went on this journey that I have witnessed, I think, part of, which is it was just like a snowball going downhill, like building such momentum. There was a new business. Obviously, you've got a fantastic personal brand. Like everybody's ever met you likes you because you're a nice guy. Um, and you're a really good speaker. Like if anyone gets the opportunity to see you speak, they should go and see you speak, because it is very different in my view. I think you're refreshingly honest. We've spoken at events today together, and I have come up to you in the past and said, "Have you told everybody how awful it is?" And you said, "Yes, I've told everybody how awful it is." But no, you're a very entertaining and engaging speaker,
thank you.
and you know, it was like there was a period where it was like this snowball hurtling down a mountain and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, more velocity. It was incredible. And I think there's a stage where I'm probably over pitching this, but it felt like you had 12 different businesses with 12 different business partners. I didn't get the sense that you were getting any sleep. Um, and there was just this frenetic activity. So, I mean, is that a fair account of, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with it rolling downhill. I mean, that was on the face of it, it looked great. And again, that e-myth, I was working on the business and not in the business. So I was partnering with, I said I had a heritage and archaeology business, for example. So I'm not an archaeologist or a heritage consultant. So I was partnering with people who liked what I was building and thought, great, it's a great way of them maybe sidestepping some of the hustle and grind that goes into getting to where you are. You know, that saying it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. What I
Mhm.
found is people were quite happy to leapfrog that 10 years. There's another saying, isn't there? Isn't there? I think that I saw Jimmy Carr had said it. People like the guy on the stage and not the journey to get there, and
Mhm.
it absolutely is that. So yeah, 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 it probably was 12 businesses, to be honest. It was a running joke at TPT that every month came around, oh, got any new businesses this week, Boyce? And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we just launched social media or we just launched media. You know, it got to a point where I didn't know what I was selling.
Mhm.
And it did get quite confusing as well because I was just me. I was just turning up to these events and people like, oh, you know, what is it you do? Oh, and it was just almost like listing off, you know, like a Christmas list. Oh, I do architecture, I do development, I do construction, I do this. And people looking at me like I had, you know, three eyes or something, or I was green. Like, what? How the hell are you doing all of this? And in the end, I realised that you know this aspiration of growth. I just said yes to too many things and not really analysed correctly. I didn't really know some of the people that well. I mean, got the archaeology guy, a friend of ours, Jezza Insurance
Mhm.
Jeremy. He'd introduced us and said, "Oh, this guy's worth a chat to. You know, you could work together." We went for coffee in Barnard Castle. I showed him around the church we were looking to do, and then I think a couple of days later we were in business together. He was, you know, he had you know, he wanted to grow as well and do all of this stuff. He was quite ambitious, but it just ran away with itself. And then when the wheels started falling off, that's when you really get the measure of people when sort of money comes into it and things. So, yeah, having built this, you know, what looked on the face of it as a great empire, or the beginning of a great empire,
Mhm.
it was built on sand basically. So when one part started falling,
Mhm.
yeah, I tried to walk away, and I've been kind of caught up in its demise, I guess, at the moment.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's good. I mean, I always liken it to the stock market. I know you're into that, but whenever
Mhm.
there's a massive, you know, hockey stick exponential growth, there's always a pullback, isn't there? So,
Mhm.
I'm just in that phase at the moment. You know, the learns and the lessons, the you know the knowledge I've got now about what I should be doing is
Mhm.
great, and I know the next stage will be fine. But yeah, the pullback is sore still.
Well, there's that album, isn't it? You have to go there to come back. I think it's a Manage
Yeah,
Your Futures album. I mean, that is definitely true. And I think most people, I include myself in this, is we really only learn through pain rather than w necessarily watching others. I mean, it's sometimes helpful if, we have like a mentor who can put their sort of arm over our shoulder and say, this might be quite a bad idea. And, have you thought about this? But, um, also, let's be honest, I mean, we've all ignored really good advice, haven't we? I know I've ignored some good advice. Like most of my 20s, I ignored some pretty good advice, I would say, around staying fit and healthy and getting some sleep.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
so
think everybody has to go through it, don't they? It's for whatever it's human nature. We all think it'll be different this time. So you know, you can read the book from Branson, Elon Musk, or whatever. You know, I read a lot of books, and everybody has been close to the wire and nearly lost it. But for whatever reason, we think we're better, or it's going to be different, and things like that. So yeah,
I,
it's
I,
we're strange beings, aren't we?
we certainly are. I have this little private mantra to myself when I'm doing anything, which is cleverer people than you, Paul, have failed at doing this before. To kind of refocus the mind, because we've all seen like really smart people blow up, and it's like, well, how did they blow up? They were so clued in. Um, I think to be kind, because it's true, I think it is part of, um, you know, I think credible teachings that, grow by using partnership models. I don't think you the theory of it can be necessarily criticized, and I don't think you can be criticized for therefore going down that path. I think we can be kind about that and say, well, look, it's a natural step that an entrepreneur might make, and um, I think we all get over our skis at some point. I also think as well, you know, human beings are tricky creatures, aren't they? I mean, I love human beings. I'm a big fan of humans, but they can be really tricky. And I think I often ask people when we do the retreats, you know, to have a think about like the year gone past and what challenges they may have encountered. And then I always ask this question, which is, put your hand up if it happens to involve another human. Everybody puts their hand up because everybody's had a difficult interaction in the last 12 months. Um, I think as well, when you're a good person, uh, you want to see the best in people. And so you go into a relationship always wanting the best for both of you and always wanting and you're seeing the best side of them and you're wanting to see the best side of them. So I think, don't be too hard on yourself, my friend. Don't be too hard on yourself. Um, but then a time came when you realized, shit, I need to rationalize all of this stuff because this is actually really problematic. So talk about the scaling down process. Not I don't want to get into the like, the grim realities of exiting businesses necessarily, because we might need to keep some of that confidential as well for legal reasons. I don't want you to get yourself in trouble. But in terms of like sense check, like where like we're going to come on to what you're doing now, but like what did you strip back down to from this great empire? What did you strip back down to?
Well, like I say, I'm back down to just the architecture now. So just what I enjoy doing. And say with growth, you got further and further away for what it was you actually got into this, this industry for. So I was removed from, the actual client interactions and design and things like that. It was all taken up with board meetings and new policies and all of this kind of stuff, and it was I didn't sign up for this. Um so yeah, the journey back down, I mean, it all started with the construction company, really. I've got a good ability to be able to refer work in. So in theory, like you say, you're just partnering with a builder.
Mhm.
I can bring loads of work in, the architecture, what happens when you get your plans, your planning approval. Oh, do you know anyone who can build it? It all made sense. In my head, this ecosystem was meeting people at TPT, potentially finding the deal, doing the architecture, building it, and then every consultant, ecology, heritage, and in between. So it was this um, this massive way of developing from start to finish, and helping people, and everybody wins. But yeah, what happened is the building stuff just wasn't very good. So yeah, it ended up with me with my hand in my pocket quite a lot,
Right.
subsidizing, paying wages, sometimes business partners' wages, and also having the difficult conversations with clients who were often my friends, family, and contacts
Mhm.
about why things hadn't happened as they should have, and the quality of work and stuff. So it just got to the end of one job, and I thought, right, we'll give this one one last shot. Let's see if it can write it. And I just realised that yeah, the other partner's heart just wasn't in it. He wasn't around. He wasn't managing the people. So I thought, you know what? If people are just prepared to use me like this, then I need to really start protecting myself. Like you said, I'm a trusting guy. I want to help people. I want to help them better themselves and better their futures. But you really do start questioning, well, what am I doing here? I'm not protecting myself. So
Mhm.
yeah, it got to a point where I said that this is it. Let's knock this on the head. The problem was that left me exposed because we were at the time developing the Great Listed Church that we were doing, which had
Mhm.
gone over budget, over time, and all of that. So it was a difficult decision, really, because it left me in a bit of a position, an awkward position with other business partners and obviously developments that were on site as well.
Mhm.
But it just started a chain of events. I mean, it was probably another 6 to 12 months before I realised that I just didn't like the others I'd kind of partnered with as well, and it wasn't what I wanted. There was no respect to my way, sorry, towards me, and also I was having to maybe tone down how I was, on social
Mhm.
media and stuff like this, and again, it just wasn't what I'd signed up for. I wanted to be different. I wanted to just continue being a bit of a sausage, completely honest. You know, I want to enjoy life. I want to enjoy business, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to have a giggle. And it just got too corporate, so I pulled away from that. And then, yeah, it wasn't long until Shit and Fan met, and unfortunately, two of the businesses went insolvent, which has really clipped my wings with a few things.
Oh
Yeah.
no. Oh no. It's for those that haven't been to TPT, they will recognise the sausage reference because at the property thing, um, they do a sausage raffle, which is one of the most
Yes.
remarkable things you'll ever see at a property meeting. But anyway, I'm not going to go into that. You need to discover
Yeah.
that for yourself. But
You need to
um,
come along and experience it, and hopefully
yeah,
you'll be there playing sausage conkers or toss a
it,
sausage into your mouth or something like that. Whatever
it
we dreamt of that week.
difficult to translate into words. So I feel like you've given us a life lesson already, but I think it's worth articulating the question specifically then. So, what is the life lesson that you would share with us? So I always say the same thing, which is it's not so much about the story, because stories are important, but it's not about the story. It's like, what have you learned that we could all benefit from hearing?
Yeah. Well, there's a few, to be honest. I would say paperwork is a big one. That's been a massive lesson for me in protecting myself.
Yeah.
So I think with joint ventures, and I see this over and over again, you know, at the beginning of a joint venture, great, you know, someone wants to JV with me, and you go skipping off into the sunset, you know, like, oh, what could possibly go wrong? Well, when stuff does start going wrong, the joint venture agreement, responsibilities, who's putting their hand in the pocket,
Hmm.
things like that, that really, really does become important because, you know, I don't mind saying. I mean, I've been left. Well, the builder I partnered with, he's still 50% owner of the business, but he left me as the only director, so I had to basically try and put the company to bed and all of
Hmm.
that. And I've been left with a lot of debt. So again, I stupidly now I realise to help people along, I'd signed a lot of the PGs on vehicles and things like this. So when they've gone back, I mean, even the builders, I got in my Toyota. Well, I say we got him a Toyota Hilux, but when
Hmm.
he put his fingers in his ears, walked away, it was me who ended up having to get it towed. Uh, you know, I'm the one who's paying the shortfall on it and things like that. It's these little bits that really do affect you. And again, at the beginning, when everybody's only thinking of blue skies and it's all going to make shit ton of money, um, that's great, and you should have that optimism. But it's the hard times that really do show what people are like, I believe.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That was a big one. And also, I mean, when I set off on this, I had this aspirational figure in my head of I wanted a grand a day, after tax,
Yeah.
every day of the year, so 365 days. And in my head, it was like, right, every business I start, I'll just have a grand off it. It's sustainable. Every property development, I'll have a grand off it. And it was like, yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult.
Hmm.
And I realized like I was saying, when I'd kind of started building this thing, I was like, actually, I don't really want this. This isn't what I signed up for. This is hell on earth. Dealing with all these people and employees and
Hmm.
legislation and all of that. So I think having been through that, you realize actually, no, you don't need as much as you think to actually um, be at peace, be content. I
Hmm.
think that's an entrepreneurial curse as well. When is enough enough?
Yeah.
Contentment, we struggle with that. It's always just one more thing, just one more thing. And it kind of can run away with itself. You end up with too many projects sat there, or you end up with too many ideas that you've brought into action that aren't really making money. So I've I've kind of given my head a shake recently and thought, you know what, life's too short. What is it I actually enjoy? I want to enjoy what I'm doing on a daily basis, and
Yeah.
what is it that actually makes money? Um,
Yeah.
and again, that's you end up throwing a lot of time and effort into a lot of things trying to get them off the ground sometimes, and they're just never going to work. So when is enough enough? You don't need as much as you think, and then also just make sure you bloody enjoy it on the way there. Otherwise, it's a grind. There's more down days than up, I would say. I don't know,
Mhm.
your experience might be different than mine, but yeah, you've got to celebrate the wins because bloody hell, it gets tedious and painful sometimes.
Honestly, Boise, that resonates a lot with me, and I think it's a wise life lesson. When we had 236 tenants, it was a monster, and it wasn't everything that I thought it would be at that side, and having scaled the business down and diversified into other things, it is that, these are great points. It's like, what do you enjoy and what actually makes money? Because you'll be surprised. There's lots of people running around doing things that look really cool and they don't make any money. But also it's like, what do you love doing? Like, what do you enjoy? Um, I've looked into, the fire movement quite a lot, and it's part of some of the stuff that I deliver to people is this concept of, financial independence, retire early. But my big, which a lot of what you've said would resonate if we were in like a fire movement kind of conversation, because it is that thing of, you don't need as much as you think. And actually, you might find that a smaller lifestyle business, actually, when you get down to having done your tax returns and your company accounts, you might find you're making more money than you are with a performance business, but that's for people to discover for themselves. But it's also, my criticism of the fire movement is, um, you've got to love, you genuinely have to enjoy what you do, because I think the purpose of life is to find meaningful work, be of service, try and be a good person. And you do, I don't think it's about exiting the matrix and like being on the beach despite the backdrop that you've currently got on yours. But I think it's more about finding something you love and you enjoy with people you like, and then keep on doing it forever, and stay healthy and stay happy. And I mean, how would that sound to you?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever retire, but I want to be on the beach and just
Mhm.
being able to do what I enjoy doing from wherever. So, I enjoy educating, and like you said, I try and keep it real and tell people the ups and the downs, what to look for. It's not like them courses who tell you that there's only upside in this thing. There's a lot of work
Mhm.
and potential risk that you've got to try and mitigate as well. But yeah, if I can sit on the beach and I enjoy doing the deals, I enjoy carving up the buildings, spotting angles that people haven't maybe spotted
Mhm.
with schemes and developments. I can do
Mhm.
that from anywhere in the world. So yeah, I'll never retire, but
Yeah.
like you say, it's doing the bits that you enjoy doing and maybe keep your mind active as well, isn't it?
Definitely. Time freedom, location freedom, ideally. Um, I want to get into the here and now, but before I do, my inner lawyer needs to just double click on something that you said, which is about the paperwork around joint ventures and everything like that. I mean, I retired from the law a long time ago, and the thing that has stayed with me is always read the contract. So that assumes there's a contract in the first place. But every meaningful contract you're ever given, it's tedious as hell, but lock yourself away for an hour, turn your phone off, ideally get a red pen and a ruler and read every single line of that contract, because when it goes pear-shaped, it comes down to two or three sentences, often towards the end of the contract, where you're a bit bored by that point. And it might be written in language which you don't fully understand as well. A lot of the language in contracts, it shouldn't be. We're meant to use plain English, but the truth is, there's a lot of technical terms are used, a lot of archaic language. There's an argument to say, you know, that's by design, to give, to keep the plebs out, to keep the people out, give the lawyers a job. Apologies to lawyers for saying that. Um, but definitely read the contract. But that assumes you've got a contract. Lots of joint ventures happen and there's no contract. Everybody's everybody loves each other, everybody's going for coffee, they're going for beers, they're having a great time. The world is always going to be a good thing. I would say even just a one-page contract with just the key heads of terms, who's responsible for what, what's the exit, and how do we manage with the costs of any exit, how, and where do they to be apportioned? Definitely a good idea. So,
Yeah. It's a lot of assumptions. I find it's people assume that everybody's on the same page as each other, but I mean, you mentioned there, what's the exit? What if someone wants to sell? What if someone wants to keep? All of that. Have the difficult conversations up front, really,
Definitely.
and you really start to get the measure of someone, and if you are actually aligned. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I had a question, like a kind of a professional question for you, which I heard in a pitch last night that um, it we reached a peak home building in around 1965, and ever since then, there's been a steady decline in the number of units created to the point where we're now at something like 50% of the units we need, and year on year we need to create. We have a shortfall of something like 170,000 homes. Now, the detail of that may not be correct. I heard it in a pitch. I'm assuming I haven't had a chance to sense check it, but just as a concept, does that sound right? And if it does sound right, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was either the late 90s or the early 2000s when I can't remember who did a report, but at that point we needed, I think, 250,000 homes, new homes a year in order to
Mhm,
keep up with, what was required. And
mhm,
we've never hit that figure since then. As you say, peak house building was way, way, way back. And then obviously the current government, Labour, their manifesto was 300,000 homes a year. And in their first year, I think they've hit maybe 180 to 200,000.
okay.
So if you think about that shortfall, just, like a snowball, just building and building and building over time, net
Mhm,
migrations through the roof and all of this, yeah, we're in a very, I don't understand why we can't build. And then I saw another article yesterday that was saying that actually house builders, they keep their homes delivered low because obviously it's beneficial to them because they can keep prices high. If they
mhm,
put too many on the market at the same time, obviously supply and demand, they're gonna flood the market and maybe they're not going to make as much money as well. So
mhm.
yeah, there is this issue, isn't there, at the moment where, yeah, I don't know what the answer is to keep up. Really, I mean, I'm trying to do my bit, but I'm just a small part in in the sausage machine. But yeah, the government red tape is one issue.
Right.
There's just too many hoops to jump through. I mean, up in the northeast, we've got something called nutrient neutrality at the moment, which is to do with the amount of nitrates entering the watercourse
Mhm,
through extra toilets, overnight stays, which is a tax on developers effectively.
mhm,
So that's a cost that you've got to find before you put a spade in the ground as well, and before you even get your planning permission these days. Yeah, ecology, biodiversity, net gain, and all of this kind of stuff. There's so many moving parts
mhm,
that it just makes a lot of the smaller, medium enterprise, SME developers. It's just too much.
mhm.
I mean, God, if you have a lot of ecology problems to get over, or heaven forbid, you've got a Roman settlement or something underground when you're digging, you've got maybe 50, 100 grand worth of consultant costs before you even get out the ground. You or I couldn't stomach that. That it'd be dead in the water and be sat there forever. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough landscape. Um, yeah, I think the other thing I did read the other day was it's the affordable housing schemes. They're
Right.
the only ones that seem to get built quickly and sort of being worthwhile. So if a scheme's got a higher percentage of affordable housing as part of it, the developer generally builds that quickly because they know they're going to get paid at the end of it. They know it's already got a tenant or a buyer.
Mhm,
So I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe incentivizing and grant funding for more of these housing development schemes for whether it's affordable housing or it's just supported living or something like that. That might be the only way to actually get the country building like they've been promising for 2 decades now.
Interesting. And it would make sense for just on a basic level, to increase supply and therefore stabilize or in theory reduce house prices in certain areas. I mean, I've got, a family member at university and her rent is £250 a week. And, as a parent, I'm thinking it would be nice to increase the number of units in that city, because it would be nice for that price to come down, because that is pretty unaffordable for the average, person. Um, Interesting. Um, uh, so tell us about your direction of travel. So, we've talked a little bit about your transition from empire through to more of a lifestyle orientation. What happens next? Like what are you focused on going forwards?
So definitely the architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, so it's back to what I enjoy doing. And then development wise, I like commercial conversion. So going back to that last question, I guess in cities, there's
Hmm.
a lot of, well, there's not enough land, is there? You can't build things where you haven't got land. So I think there is a big opportunity with commercial conversions. I mean, I'm in the northeast. We're not as up to speed with the likes of Manchester and Leeds and places like that, where you have these, shops on the ground floor with loads of flats above. But there are opportunities, I think, around the country with stuff like that.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I've decided I'm going to sort of focus my efforts going forward. I think there's a good chance to buy um, commercial buildings that are vacant at pennies in the pound, rather than building new and wasting money that way.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of my focus. Having been around the houses with a bit of HMO, a bit of SA, a bit of new build, a bit of buy to let refurbs and all that, I'm going to just keep it on one thing, inch wide, mile deep.
Hmm.
And potentially things like planning gains and stuff like that. Use again just the knowledge I've gained over all of these years of how to carve up a deal, spot an opportunity, and then having been through the development ringer, let's say the mangle, maybe give it to some other idiot to develop out. I'll just make the quick win
Yeah.
on the planning uplift, because there's plenty of people who, like we were saying before, you need to go through it to realise that actually there's maybe more money elsewhere. So
Hmm.
there's, I don't want to say I'm trying to stitch people up here, but there's plenty of people who want the opportunity, who want to say they've done something. Yeah, if I can just make a quick, 10 to 100 grand in getting the planning uplift, then that's all right with me as well.
Hmm. So, I mean, I suppose I was going to ask you, like, where for like a trade idea, or where you see opportunity, but it sounds like you see opportunity as commercial conversions up in the northeast where you are. I mean, you've recently been nominated for an award for one of your commercial conversions. Congratulations for that. Fingers
Thank you. And
crossed.
I saw you were nominated for the same award, so I look forward to the piss
No,
up with you, mate.
mine was not for commercial
Oh,
conversion.
sorry.
Mine was
This,
for
yeah,
community, like property
yeah.
community and all the rest of it. Um, so fingers crossed, like best of luck with that, obviously.
Thank you.
And
Likewise.
planning game, that's interesting as well. You're not the first person to sort of mention that to me in the last couple of weeks. So it seems like planning game is something that, is definitely out there, if provided you're sufficiently qualified and obviously you know what you're doing, which you clearly do. Um, so talk us through health is wealth. I said to you as we got on the call, I said like that you look really good. Then people should come to YouTube and see how healthy you look, because I've seen you like running around like, and it was like you looked like you hadn't slept in weeks, and you were going from event to event. And just following you on socials was exhausting, because you were here, there, and everywhere. But I would say you're looking pretty good, mate. So, how are you managing all of this? Like, give us a health is wealth hack or tip.
Oh God, I would love to say, my body's a temple and I'm as on it as you are at the moment, Paul, with your health regime. But no, I probably, like a lot of people, I go through phases where I'm completely on it. Like over summer, when the sun was out, I was
Mhm.
out, on the patio with me kettlebell, and I've got a chin up bar and the on the back wall and all of that kind of stuff. I was really on it, getting into my budgie smugglers from the holidays and all of that kind of thing. But you get ill, don't you? I think I had a cold a few weeks ago, and just getting back into that routine has been a struggle. I mean, as you say, I do a lot of networking as well.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a night owl,
Hmm.
so I can't go to the gym at 6 in the morning and stuff like that. I'll be
Yeah.
ruined for the day. So what I find happens is you're kind of quite lethargic. I mean, I don't know what it is about property, but there's always a curry at the end of it, and it's the worst
Yeah.
thing to eat at
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night. I find because yeah, you really struggle the day after. So
I think
yeah, I
James
mean,
Rogers of Property and Poppadoms may have a lot to answer for. He's on the
I
podcast in a
know.
couple of weeks' time, but I think we can all blame him for too much curry consumption, can't we?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I run obviously the Newcastle one of those. I've just started the business and Balti one, so I can't get away from it. I'm just wishing for pasta and property or something like that to come out of the woodwork. Just so a bit of variation in my networking diet, to be honest. But no, so God, what do I do? I drink mushroom coffee. I did give up drinking for 2 years, 2 and a bit years,
Right?
while I was going through that explosive growth.
Hmm.
Realized, God, what have I done this? So I've hit the bottle again. So just to calm down. So no, I like a good red wine. God, what else do I do? I
No, no,
mean, yeah,
that's
what
enough. That's enough. That's
what
good.
what the dogs? I do read and listen to a lot of stuff. Yeah, so
Okay, so that's a good idea. Give us a book. Give us a book that we can dive into. I mean, you've mentioned two great ones already.
well, another two, and I guess it depends where you are. You know, everything's cyclical, isn't it? And they mean something at different parts of your life. So
Yeah.
saying about you don't need as much as you think. Two books that really put it into perspective. I think the guy's called Bill Perkins was Die with Zero,
Yeah.
which that's about the journey and striving and trying to better yourself and all of that. But you've got to enjoy the way up as well. Otherwise, you get to 65, 70 when you're clocking off and like, great, I've got £5 million in the bank, great. Well, at
Yeah.
that point, you're not able to do the things you are now.
Totally.
You're never going to be as young or as fit as you are right now, really,
Yeah.
biologically anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to make sure you treat yourself and enjoy the ride on the way up. Otherwise, you get to the end, you've got a shitload of money, and you're going to die the richest man in the graveyard. That's not what it's about.
Definitely. Someone recommended me that book, and I was put off by the title because I misunderstood what the title was implying. And it's really very much a nod to Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Work Week when he talks about having mini retirements, which is something that we have and do. You know, and I talk about this again at retreats. It is the stuff you can do in your 20s, the stuff you can do in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and onwards, and they're different things. You know, so that's a great recommendation. Recommendation. You're not the first to recommend that. What was the other book?
So it's a bit morbid as well, and you might maybe pass it by because of the title. I can't remember how many regrets, but the top 7 or 10 regrets of the dying, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that one's about a lass who was kind of a carer for people,
yeah,
and on the end of life and all of that. And they always she asked, well, what do you regret doing? And nobody ever says, oh, I wish I'd worked harder. I wish I hadn't seen the family as much. I wish I hadn't gone on holiday and all of that kind of stuff. Because again,
mhm,
there's a couple of the stories in there are, you sit down with your partner, your wife, your husband, and all of that, or your family, and you put these aspirational timelines in. When we get to 60, we're gonna sell it all and we're gonna go traveling around the world and stuff like that. But
mhm,
what happens if you don't get there? So there's a few really, horrible stories where people have done that, high paid jobs and, working all the hours under the sun just to get there. Great. You've got a lot of money in the bank again. But then it gets to clocking off time and, someone gets cancer and they only have 6 months to live and things like that. And it's,
mhm.
again, going back to the Bill Perkins Die with Zero, you've got to enjoy the way there because we just never know when our number's up. Um,
Definitely.
so again, that one put it in perspective for me. With just when is enough enough, and you've got to enjoy what you're doing because we don't know how many times we're going to be going around the sun.
I think that's really good. And do you know what? A really good friend of mine has recommended that book to me this week. She put it in the group that we're in, and the title might make it sound a bit depressing, but one of my other friends read it a couple of years ago, and she said to me, "It's not what you think it is, Paul. It's not depressing. It's actually really very profound." And so they're good, both of those. And I haven't listened to both of those, so I should put them on my list.
Yeah,
Very good.
definitely light bulb moments for me.
Yeah.
Again, it's, when I was building what I was building and thinking, God, I'm probably going to work myself into an early grave here. That's not what it's about, is it? So no, it's definitely given my head a shake with what I want going forward, and goals and aspirations and things like that as well.
I think that's a very positive thing. I mean, very sadly, in my like property and investor community, lost two of the guys this year, and they were only like early 50s and otherwise in really good health. Um, it's really shocking. It's really shocking. Sobering, but I think what you've recommended, great resources. Like, let's all get refocused on those. I think that's a really good shout. You have been to my breakfast. I have been to TPT.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
someone was thinking about coming along to one of my breakfasts, what kind of experience have you had when you've come to my breakfast?
Yeah, it's amazing. I will be back soon. I'll get
Mhm.
my overnight booked. As I say, I'm not a morning person, so I have to make an effort to get to these things in the morning. But no, it's great connections, and the way it's, it was like a round table and really getting to know people.
Mhm.
When I was there, it was helping. Has anyone got a problem? Let's all sort this out around the table. It was really good. And obviously, I'm a member of the WhatsApp community since then, and still meet some of the people who go there, and everybody's really positive in wanting to help. It's not one of those groups where you go and you're being sold to by deal sources who've found a deal on Zoopla or whatever else. It's good people from all walks of life, different business and property levels and journeys, but they're all there to help each other. So it's a great resource, and definitely what you should put in your calendar if you haven't been.
That is very good to hear. Thank you for that. And as I've said, TPT, one of my favorite in the entire country. If you're ever up there for a reason, you have to go to TPT. It's such a good laugh. If nothing else, it's a really good laugh. Great vibe, great crowd. Um, you will not be disappointed. So yeah, I mean, some of it's completely bonkers at times, but let's not get too into that. We've had people dressing up and all kinds of things, but let's leave it there. Um, so, if people have enjoyed this podcast, and I really hope they have, um, where is the best place for me to send them? Typically, I put in people's LinkedIn profiles. What would work for you?
Well, probably LinkedIn's one of my least favorite platforms, to be honest.
Okay, we won't put you on LinkedIn
It's
then.
too professional for me. It's
Okay,
too
where do you
professional.
want
I
me to
mean, I
send
do.
these people?
Yeah. Well, Facebook is a great
Yeah.
way. Facebook or Instagram, really, I'm more active on. So Anthony Boyce, or on Instagram, it's Anthony_Boyce_property. So yeah, great ways of keeping in touch. Or yeah, I'm more than happy to share contact details if anyone wants to get in touch directly as well.
Very good. Excellent. I will put that all in the show notes. All that remains me to say is thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been great. It's been a real pleasure to catch up. I really enjoyed it. Just wishing you continued success, my friend.
Thank you very much. No, thank you for having me, and yeah, can't wait to bump into you soon at an event.
No doubt you will. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Property Investor Podcast will be back next week with another guest. If you've enjoyed the podcast, which I really hope you have, please do subscribe to the podcast so you get notified. Please do also like or comment on the podcast because it makes such a big difference on the platforms, particularly YouTube and Spotify. And thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you and next week.